So have you ever wondered what is the difference between offensive tools in Age of Empires Mobile and defensive tools, by the way? Well, that's exactly what we're gonna do in this episode by comparing these two adornments. The Thunder one, which is considered to be an offensive tool, versus the Resistance Adornment, which is considered to be a defensive tool. And the data comes from 160 battle reports, and this video also will beautifully highlight how interconnected the defensive tools are with the offensive tools. Because for the vast majority of the players which have lesser experience in Age of Empires Mobile, their answer will gonna be very fast, saying, well, take the Thunder and you're definitely gonna do more damage. And if that is your answer, I strongly advise you to watch this episode till the end, because the answer is definitely a different one. But of course, there are experienced players also in Age of Empires Mobile. That's why it's super important for me to show you exactly how I have tested this difference, as it's absolutely super possible that some of you gonna jump in the comments and say, Timmy, for example, if you would have used a different hero here or a different hero there, probably the result will be even more accurate. But please do me a favor, if that is the case, please still rate the value of this information. For example, if you would have used here the hero A and here the hero B, it would have been a far better test, but still I would rate the value of this information in this episode at round about, I don't know, 60-70%. And I think you got the picture. So now let's have a look at this specific setup in which I'm testing the difference between these two adornments. But before I forget, beautiful people, stop being lazy and support what supports you back, as one way is definitely 100% free. And if you keep coming back to this channel to see these wonderful videos, might as well also press that subscribe button. And obviously you can also support this channel by taking advantage of this channel sponsor, which is Eneba, and you find my link in the video description. So good, let's jump to this setup. As on Mr. Cyrus, I have not changed anything. So I kept the gear, I kept the Messenger of Destruction ring, I kept this mythical horse, but one small exception. I'm using here a level 1 Resistance Adornment, and when it comes down to the second hero, I use here a purple hero which literally has nothing on him. And the reason is pretty simple. I still need an intact march of 3 heroes, because first is Cyrus' turn, then this hero is gonna get his turn, then Mansa Musa gets his turn, as that definitely is needed when it comes down to the Thunder Adornment. And on the third slot, I'm having Mansa Musa. Well, I have no gear on him. I kept his legendary horse, and I also kept his adornment, which in this case, yeah, it's level 42 and has the resistance. And the second reason of choosing such a setup is to get a battle duration closer to 1 minute, because if I were to put my normal setup and just only change the adornment, the target will explode within 15 seconds, and that's not reliable data. So I'm going to put in a second the data coming from 80 battle reports in total, because you guessed it, beautiful people, I'm using the supply boss, which actually are 4 marches, and since Cyrus has this random factor in his skills, like a chance to cast this counterattack, well, you're gonna see 20 battle on the screen, but every single battle contains the total damage output from Cyrus versus all 4 marches. And another reason why I'm producing this episode, because I'm also interested in the difference between those two, because you probably noticed this is Roland, potentially the new warrior pikemans, an alternative for Mansa Musa, which potentially should have a design just like Elizabeth, meaning in other words, the higher your damage is, the more he will heal. So seeing in other words a battle report like this, in 1 minute and 50 seconds, my Cyrus and Vlad together done roughly around 2 million points damage. If I were to put Roland in here, how much will he heal versus Mansa Musa? Now granted, the numbers on Vlad and the numbers on Cyrus definitely are influenced by the presence of Mansa Musa in here. And now let's put the first 20 battle reports, in which I'm gonna use this adornment, which is the resistance at level 1. So beautiful people, these are the 20 battle reports. So we have 10 here and another 10 here. The numbers are not sorted. Don't worry about this, as they will be sorted in the graphic. And the most important number right here is the average total damage output of Cyrus. And this is 890,883 points while using the Resistance Adornment. And now let's have a look at the second setup. It is literally the same with only one difference. When we go to Cyrus, well, in this case, we're gonna have a level 1 Thunder Adornment. And after you're gonna see the graphic, which highlights the difference between these two, I'm gonna explain you exactly why we have obtained that result. And beautiful people, these are the 20 battery ports in which I'm using the Thunder Adornment. And here we have the 10 battery ports. Here we have another 10 battery ports. And of course, I have to remind you that in each of these battery ports, I am attacked by 4 marches. Therefore, the data here comes from a total of 80 battery ports. And the most important value is the one downstairs. The average total damage output of Cyrus when using this Thunder Adornment. And this value is 848,757 points. Now let's put this beautiful graphic on the screen so you understand even better what's the difference between the Thunder Adornment and the Resistance Adornment. And here it is. So first of all, we have the 20 battery ports. You see the nodes here marked. You also see that these battery ports are actually sorted from the worst performance possible, or in the case in which you're absolutely super unlucky with your hero activation skills, all the way up in which you're gonna be super lucky when it comes down to your hero activation skills. So what else you have to pay attention? Obviously, the blue line or the interrupted line is Cyrus with the Resistance Adornment. And you see here the average damage output being 890,000, which is far higher than the average performance of the red line, or in other words, Cyrus with the Thunder Adornment. And what else are you seeing here besides this battle results interval? Well, you are seeing these segments, like here, 40% of the entire interval. Like for example, in 40% of this entire battle results interval, the Resistance Adornment is better than the Thunder Adornment. And then you see the other segment right here with 30%, which represents 30% of the entire battle interval, in which again, the Resistance Adornment will perform better than the Thunder Adornment. And what is left is obviously only 30%, and this represents this section over here, and this section over here of the crazy results, in which the difference is extremely small. So in other words, in 70% of this battle results interval, the Resistance Adornment will be better than the Thunder Adornment. But you obviously want to know the difference in numbers. Cyrus with the Resistance Adornment will gonna perform approximately 4.96% better than Cyrus using the Thunder Adornment. And now let's jump into the game to explain you 2 important things. First of all, why we have obtained these results and how both of these adornments work, because here I have tested both adornments at level 1 and you can level them up, and it's gonna be very interesting. So first, let's have a look at the Resistance Adornment. First of all, it's super important to mention that this is 100% guaranteed. And what are you seeing in this description? Well, you are seeing skill damage reduction, but also you are seeing overall damage reduction. Well, guess what? The overall damage reduction applies for normal attacks, but also for the skill damage, the highest type of damage in Age of Empires Mobile. Therefore, the first sentence means in the first 18 seconds, the first 3 instances of skill damage were going to be reduced not just only by 5.74%, but in reality by 9.5%. And after you have received those 3 instances of skill damage, the rest of the time till the 18 seconds, you're going to get to keep this 3.85% damage reduction, which is again normal damage reduction and skill damage reduction. And after these 18 seconds, you're gonna get to keep this overall damage reduction of 1.91%. So good, now let's have a look at the Thunder Adornment. Because after the hero which has this adornment equipped launches a normal attack, there is a 70% chance to increase the hero's next skill damage by 7.65% for 3 seconds. And let me explain you this in a different way. Because as you can see here, sure, indeed it is a very high chance to get this extra damage, but this is not guaranteed. And this is approximately how it looks like in the code. After the hero which has this adornment equipped launches a normal attack, you're gonna do a roll. The system will randomly pick a number between 1 and 100. This is this value x, and if this roll it's smaller or equals 70, well, then you're gonna get this beautiful 7.65% extra buff. But if the value is 71, 72, and so on, all the way up to 100, guess what? You are getting nothing. And this loop goes on and on and on. Important to mention here is with each turn, you're gonna have less and less units in your march, therefore you're gonna hit less and less. That's why it's so important for you to get this value right at the beginning of the battle. But since both these runes scale up, let's have a closer look at these values. So for the Thunder Adornment, you'll be able to get a far higher hero next skill damage, but the value of 70% has not changed. And there's a second negative thing when it comes down to the Thunder Adornment, which is the fact that, imagine for a second, I have this adornment on Cyrus, on Vlad, and on Mansa Musa, and I'm actually going to get, in quote, lucky to activate this extra damage, but on Mansa Musa. Yeah, obviously, it's going to be far better if that will activate on Vlad, and of course, even better if this would activate on Cyrus, but this is not guaranteed. Now, when it comes down to the Resistance Adornment, one thing remains the same. It is 100% guaranteed that you're going to get this damage reduction, and obviously the values grow higher and higher, not to mention the fact that equipping 3 resistant adornments on all 3 heroes in your march means you're going to get an even higher number because yes, they do indeed stack. And indeed, we have far more adornments in this list, but I don't know if you're watching the videos from Catzilla, because he also done an analysis on this, and based on this drop rate, and of course, on the adornment's design, the Resistant Adornment is really a very, very solid one. And hopefully you understood that in this episode with the numbers, but not just that, hopefully you also understood how defensive tools indirectly act like offensive tools. In other words, the lesser damage you are taking every single turn, the more units you're gonna have, therefore you're gonna hit far harder your opponent, and the same goes for the offensive tools. The harder you are able to hit, the lesser units your opponent will have every turn, therefore he is gonna hit weaker and weaker. And this is a very important aspect of the game. Now allow me to end this episode with a very, very important topic on which I'm definitely gonna do a video, in order to highlight again how valuable this episode is for all players out there, because they're always going to be the same question. On which stats should I focus the most? And in Age of Empires Mobile, sure, we have attack, we have defense, then we have stats which are more powerful, which by the way, dear developers, I don't see in here. For example, skill damage reduction or extra skill damage. We also have stats like, for example, health or march size. And sure, all these stats improves your march, but obviously stats like health, march size, skill damage increase and skill damage decrease, we're gonna have a far bigger impact on your march performance. Therefore, the general answer to this question is pretty simple. Take whatever is cheapest to upgrade. And that's why this new mount system is super awesome, because it was just introduced. Therefore, the chances of you getting a good horse, or the chances for you to get a good adornment, like the Resistance for example, are pretty high. We're gonna have now at the beginning a far bigger impact. So yeah, beautiful people, let me add also this one, because if you keep coming back to this channel, watching 2, 3 and more of these videos, stop being lazy, because that subscribe button is not far away from your finger, isn't it? And anyways, beautiful people, thank you very much for watching, and I'm gonna catch you in the next one. Ciao, ciao, ciao.